In just a few days, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are set to meet in Alaska, the first U.S. Russia summit on American soil in decades. The official line? To explore peace in Ukraine. The real question: peace for who and at what cost? Because behind the optics of two powerful men shaking hands in a historic location lies a reality that neither side will admit in public. This isn't about ending the war, it's about buying time. But here's the twist: it's not Russia that needs more of it. Russia's true objective. Moscow's goal hasn't changed since 2014. Ukraine must remain neutral, permanently. NATO membership is off the table. The territories Russia already holds in the east and south? They're not bargaining chips, they're considered Russian soil now. If tomorrow Kyiv installed a stable pro-Russian government and signed a neutrality pact, the war could end the next day. But that's not what this meeting is about. For Putin, the war's slow pace is not a weakness. It's deliberate strategy. Each month of fighting keeps Ukraine from joining NATO, keeps the West bogged down in resupply battles, and slowly reshapes the political climate in Europe. Why Russia can afford the long game, contrary to Western narratives of a collapsing Russian economy, the war has turned into a domestic economic engine. Defense factories are running 24/7. Unemployment is near zero. Imports flow in through China, North Korea, and a web of neutral countries, keeping the war machine stocked. Russia now outproduces NATO in artillery shells and key munitions, a reversal of Cold War expectations. And politically, wartime conditions consolidate power, crush dissent, and strengthen the Kremlin's grip. Ending the war now would give up those advantages, and for what? Unless the war begins to truly damage Russia's core, which it hasn't, Moscow benefits from letting it run. The West's real motivation: Western leaders talk about defending democracy, but in reality, Ukraine is seen as a tool, a piece on the chessboard. For Washington, Ukraine is leverage. Keep Russia contained and occupied. Break Europe's reliance on Russian energy. Turn Ukraine into a cheap supplier of resources for European industry. For Europe, especially Germany, France, and Britain, Ukraine is more than a buffer. It's a potential resource corridor. Control over Ukraine's metals, agriculture, and transit routes means less dependence on both Russia and eventually the United States. That's why they won't let it go. Not because of moral duty, but because Ukraine's land is as strategic as its location. Europe's industrial drift. Here's where the Alaska illusion comes into focus. In 2022 and early 2023, U.S. defense contractors cashed in HIMARS, Patriots, Abrams, F-35s. It looked like Washington had locked in Europe for another generation. But by late 2023, the shift began. Spain ditched the F-35 in favor of European jets. France, Germany, and Italy doubled down on domestic projects like the FKS fighter, Eurodrone, and new tank designs from Rheinmetall. Even Poland, the most US-aligned, is mixing in South Korean armor alongside American tanks. Europe wants the security of NATO without being dependent on US arms. And that's a problem for Washington's long-term influence. Who's actually running out of time? If Russia can sustain this war with minimal strain, and Europe is quietly reducing its reliance on American defense, then who's racing against the clock? It's the West. Ukraine's ammunition is running low. Western political will is running out. And the longer this war drags on, the more Europe's arms and energy strategies drift away from Washington's grip. In this light, Alaska looks less like a peace summit and more like a last-ditch PR play, a photo op to show progress before U.S. elections, even if nothing concrete changes. The only real pressure on Moscow: there's only one player who could push Putin to close this chapter sooner: China. Beijing benefits from a strong Russia, but it also needs global stability for its own economic ambitions, especially if it's eyeing Taiwan in the late 2020s. If the war ever threatens China's grand strategy, pressure will come from Beijing, not Brussels or Washington. Unless that happens, expect the war to grind forward. Not at breakneck speed, but at the slow, deliberate pace that serves Moscow's interests. Territories held, Ukraine neutralized in practice, if not on paper, and a Europe gradually loosening its ties to Washington while quietly building the capacity to stand on its own. So when the headlines flash images from Alaska, remember, this isn't the endgame, it's theater. And the real countdown isn't on Russia's clock, it's on the West's. Stay informed on the world's shifting power. Subscribe to the Watchtower Report, where strategy meets reality.